Okay, so let me introduce this this session for the next hour. I'm now trying to do three things at once, and as my wife tells me, I can't do that. I can't do more than one thing at once. I'm trying to read the chat, I'm trying to admit people, and I'm trying to remember what I'm supposed to say at the beginning of the meeting. So the first thing to say is that the attendees, if you're not one of the speakers, could you put yourself on mute? Thank you. Right, so the first thing to say about this meeting is that it is comprised deliberately of three types of people who I think will find the platform that we're going to demonstrate to you very interesting. Those three people, those three groups are consultants, practitioners, and researchers, academics. So when you're looking at the platform, I'd urge you to consider how can you use this yourself? Because one of our aims, one of our calls to action from this meeting will be to canvass you to try and find some early adopter volunteers. We believe, that is myself, Kevin, Mika, Pia, we believe that ecosystems are so important and so relatively complex, or can be so relatively complex, that they need a fit for purpose tool or a fit for purpose platform for you to be able to properly design a model and instigate them. And so to do that, you will need a platform, and we're looking for active practitioners. So if you're a consultant who's advising clients, or if you're a head of ecosystems looking to develop an ecosystem for your own organization, or indeed a researcher, please get in touch with us. We'd be happy to talk to you about the platform and how you can use it and what the value might be. So as I said, the purpose is to introduce a designed fit for purpose ecosystem modeling platform. Now, I spend most of my life researching best practices in alliances, and of late, best practices in ecosystems. And this is the first system that I've seen that is simple to use, can be used by non-technical people, and massively accelerates the way that you can envisage an ecosystem. You can get a picture of an ecosystem on one page and make it make sense, see the sense that it makes. My involvement has been that I conducted a research program to develop a thing called the Partner Ecosystem Maturity Model. So contained within the platform is a Partner Ecosystem Maturity Model tool. There are various tools on the platform. In fact, there's so many we can't demonstrate them all. They're very powerful. They're very useful.
I've not seen anyone. I don't know.
But the platform itself is...
I really don't know. It was there yesterday.
Sorry. We had some people join the waiting room, and they didn't realize that they weren't being admitted.
You can force mute, I think, Mike, so...
That's okay. Okay, so we've got some more people coming up. Okay, so the involvement of Alliance Best Practice is that, first of all, I research best practices, and I believe that Transformation Accelerator from Trident is certainly currently, and for a while yet, will be the best of the best ecosystem modeling tool that you guys could possibly use. My involvement in it is that I've developed, with the help of 53 other researchers, practitioners in the ABP community, a partner ecosystem maturity model, and we've embedded that into the platform. The main points, the main things that I'd like you to try and get out of this. First of all, I'd like you to realize that you can have one view of your ecosystem. So hopefully you'll see from the demonstration an image of an ecosystem, quite a complex ecosystem, and it will make sense on one picture, which is very, very important. Secondly, the dynamic modeling aspect. Typically when we as consultants advise clients, or when you as practitioners design when you do that, you use Excel and spreadsheets, Word and PowerPoint slides. They're not dynamic. You can't change things on the fly. You can't add new players, new stakeholders. You can't change business models, which you can do with the platform. The speed with which you can do this and the way that it encourages people to work together, to put their own thoughts into a common platform is very, very important. And then finally, I think one of the most valuable things for me about them is the value maps. The fact that you can see where the value is being created and see how it's moving around the system, how it's moving around the ecosystem. And most importantly, just like any kind of decent plumber, you can see where there are leaks in this. So with that as an introduction, let me introduce the three parties that are here today. So there's myself, Mike Nevin, as the facilitator of the meeting. We'll hear from Kevin McCaffrey in just a second, who will be demonstrating the system to you. But we also have representatives from Funnel, which is a consultancy in Finland, I believe you're headquartered, Mika. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You want to say a few words to introduce yourself and explain your interest in the platform?
Yeah, thank you. Mika Rautio, nice to meet you all. Why we are here, when we first started talking with Mike and Kevin, we actually realized really quickly that this solution, this platform might help us to reduce the production time for ecosystem modeling and designing. And that's why we are really keen on seeing what your other reactions are towards this platform, and also keen to see what kind of players we have showing interest about the ecosystem and ecosystem modeling.
Yeah, and maybe Mika, I can add as a Mika's colleague from Funnel that I really look forward to an interesting discussion like during the Kevin's presentation about this ecosystem modeling tool, about your challenges, what you have been faced in various stages of the ecosystem collaboration and building ecosystems in different levels and how they have been addressed so far. So I think it would be very valuable for all of us share those challenges and of course also the best practices we have found out during the research of the different type of the ecosystems. And I agree that why we are here is that I think we really share the same view with Kevin and Mike, how should we design and modeling these ecosystems, this complex ecosystem structure, to ensure this ecosystem succeed and already from the beginning. So we kind of truly believe that this trends tool is one of the great way to look in deeper for different type of the ecosystem modeling.
Thank you, Pia. Okay, so why don't we get right on with it and invite Kevin to share his screen. Kevin, I'm guessing that you'll be talking for around about 20-25 minutes demonstrating, and then we'll open it up for questions. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the intent. We're going to do a quick, let's say, flyby on some of the high-level elements within the platform, and focus on a particular use case of how the product was used by an enterprise company to model an ecosystem with multiple companies. Yeah, and then obviously we want to leave time for conversation and comment. Yeah, so thank you for providing the opportunity on this, and as Micah said, really the purpose on this is to get people's feedback and also to look for organizations that may find this of interest to use themselves, so that we can start kind of working with them in terms of piloting the platform and seeing what their thoughts are, and also on the the partner ecosystem maturity model content that Mike and the other guys have put together. So
Right.
what I'm going to do, just as an overview, is I'm just going to kind of do 2 or 3 quick slides and then get into the product itself. And we're just going to pick one. There's a large number of use cases within the product that are available for everybody. What we want to do is just kind of focus on one and not you know, give you too much to absorb too soon. So let me just share my screen here. So just go share screen. Actually is fine. Share screen. So and let me just make that a bit bigger. Alrighty, cool. Just move this out of the way. So the name of our product is called Transformational Accelerator. We launched it back in about 2018, and since then it's been used by a wide range of different organizations, both for internal strategy and ecosystem modeling, but also by consultants and vendors for working with their particular clients. And you know, one of the key things that we have found, and you know, I've done a lot of work in terms of large enterprises and working with them from a consulting point of view. And when we talk to many organizations and we say, well, tell us a bit about how you're dealing with change, or how you're looking at modeling ecosystems or dealing with strategy, they tend to, you know, use whatever kind of tools they've got in front of them. And, you know, this diagram, quite often when we put it up, people say, yeah, well, that's what we are. We got a bit of stuff maybe in Miro, we start that off, and then we do maybe some stuff in PowerPoint. And, you know, depending on who the stakeholders are, we want to see different things. But, you know, it's difficult. And, you know, as Mike pointed out, you know, products like PowerPoint and others are useful, but they're not necessarily the best in terms of for collaboration. So one of the things we wanted to have was a single SaaS platform that multiple people can work on collaboratively to define ecosystems based on, you know, inputs from things such as their business model, their drivers, the overall strategic vision, and then actually look at potentially taking that down to the next level in terms of, well, what are the use cases then associated with those particular with the business ecosystem. So Transformation Accelerator is, as I said, it's available to do a wide range of things, and we're going to predominantly focus on the ecosystem modeling side of things today. But the important thing is, as you know, within an ecosystem, as we all know, you know, you have different types of stakeholders, and they have different agendas, different problems, looking for different outcomes. And to be able to have a single platform that enables you to see things from different perspectives is really important. And, you know, in terms of the benefits from using the product, you know, from recent research and surveys we've done with our clients, what they found is that they're able to actually define the ecosystem up to 70% quicker than they had done previously. And because that's done in a collaborative way, ideally with the stakeholders, you're getting this implicit buy-in and you get agreement quicker. And then for those companies organizations who then need to go and implement, you know, maybe new systems or changing processes, there's greater clarity in terms of the execution and implementation when they start that, because the requirements are a lot clearer and understood. So what I'm going to do now is jump over to the product, and we'll start going through that. So first of all, you know, Transformation Accelerator, it's what's referred to as a multi-tenant environment. So we're currently working in the Alliance Best Practices area. So this area is private, you know, that Mike controls, and he can invite different people to that and give them different levels of access. But the object that you create within the tool is a project. And what we're seeing here is, you know, just some example projects that are you know, in this workspace. We'll look at, there are a wide range of other example projects and that we can look at as well. But the one project that we're going to focus on today is a project that was worked on in we participate in this collaborative community in the telecom sector, where multiple organizations come together to work on a particular prototype or a new initiative. And in this situation, it was a collaboration between Salesforce, Jaguar Land Rover, and about 4 or 5 other organizations, where Jaguar Land Rover had said, look, this was from a couple of years back now, actually. They were looking at, we're looking at launching a new range of electric vehicles. We want to give the best possible customer experience to the customers, but we want to add services that we wouldn't traditionally provide, and we need to look at how we could model an ecosystem with different types of stakeholders in order to provide that kind of bundled offering to our end customer. So within the project, you'll see it's got an overview. It talks about the content. But one of the key aspects within the product, and because of the nature of this is an ecosystem modeling tool, is actually understanding and who are the key stakeholders that are going to be involved in this. Now we're keeping this is a relatively simple project here, but the stakeholders obviously are key, but also then they deliver different products and services, within the product. Now, as you're working on the project, iteratively, you'll be able to add, additional stakeholders, and we'll see that in a moment. So within the content, it's very much like a table of contents. And, if we expand it, these are just little headers where below that, you've got specific content that actually just, captures specific information. So in this situation, you'll see that there are these little cards, and you kind of think of these cards as like intelligent PowerPoint slides, where they're used to capture specific information. So you can see things about overall value, problem statements, customer drivers, what are the partner drivers, the business model, and then we'll start looking at the ecosystem. So in any of these items we refer to are called modules, and those modules, would capture things up front. When you're defining the ecosystem and designing it, you need to obviously consider different perspectives from the different stakeholders. So for example, if I wanted to look at the smart city charging provider, what is the problem that they're looking at solving? So you're trying to instill also a methodology and a process for people to consider when they're modeling the ecosystem. So at any stage, you can go and say, well, look, I want to add a new item here. And I could say, well, I want, travel hotel, right? I'll just put in something here. And I want to add a new stakeholder to that. Well, I don't have one there, but I can just quickly add, let's say, the hotel. So I can on the fly, you can be working on different things. You can be adding different stakeholders throughout this, and blah blah blah, whatever we want to add in there. Now, these are the tech stacks aspects of the project, of the input into the ecosystem, and one of the key elements which we look at in a moment is the visualization on the ecosystem. But one of the things that is used quite often as part of a way of understanding things is to actually look at the actual business model associated with either a particular stakeholder or across the entire solution. So one of the things that we've done within here is we've made the business model canvas available, but within that also we've been able to, for example, include links to what are the key stakeholders that are going to be associated with it. So you're starting to link different aspects together within here.
Do you want to have cheese?
And you're also then able to tag them in different ways, and that allows you to I think there's
sorry, if I mute all, then I'll lose Kevin. Could we all agree to be muted if it's not Kevin, if you're not speaking, please? Thank you. So sorry, Kevin, Karen.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So so within the business model, we can then focus and say, well, look, what are the areas that are relevant that we've tagged for ecosystem partners, and we can, filter those and focus the discussion on that area. But sometimes that actually raises a gap, and you say, well, look, this looks great, we can see this, but actually we haven't identified what customer segments are going to be associated with that. So those are things that you identify and you flag as you go through. And I could kind of add a note here and say, well, gee, I'll just make it to myself so we can see it. Kevin, need to review this. And very much like kind of a LinkedIn notification, we'll see the notifications appear over here to let me know that somebody has made a comment. And typically the work being done here is done collaboratively, and it could have multiple people working on it, or you could have one person doing a first kind of iteration of it and then presenting it to other people. But so the business model is great, and most of you are well familiar with that. But one of the challenges sometimes with the business model canvas is the fact that it's somewhat static. You don't see who's doing what are the interactions within here. So what you want to be able to do is create an ecosystem diagram. Now, I'm just going to click next on the bottom, which brings us into the next kind of card or module, which is an ecosystem model. But in this example, what we've just done is we've just put in, here are the stakeholders that we've identified. And very quickly I can say, well, look, I want to add the hotel in here. But then I want to start defining relationships, for example, between the hotel and, let's say, the enterprise. And I want to say, well, the hotel is going to provide a product or service, and maybe the enterprise in return is going to, send some data and so on. So you're visually starting to map the elements within the ecosystem. So it's very, very simple to do this, but as you're working through this, you're actually typically having discussions with people and saying, okay, let's understand that. What is the flow of money and all of those? So if I kind of jump ahead, it's a bit like a cooking program to show you something I prepared earlier. So if I go next and I show you the final ecosystem diagram that this team created, and let me just make it a bit bigger. You'll see here that what they did was they said, well, okay, Jaguar Land Rover is at the center of this. We've got the customer in their car in the bottom right-hand corner. We've got a range of different lines stuff going on. But as you're kind of looking at this, as Mike said earlier, you can start seeing different things. Okay, they're paying for that. There's something going on here. Now, the color scheme that's in here on those lines is defined based on the type of interaction. So the purpose of this is to actually focus and say, well, okay, let's think about our things from a products and services perspective. So I can go and say, well, maybe I don't want to see the data, the contractual and the operational. And I can actually look at this and say, well, okay, now I can see where the flow of the products and services are. But actually, I can see there's a challenge here. Maybe the communications service provider, who I think was Verizon in this case, there's no product indicated as to what they're going to provide. So that's a gap. We need to solve that. But also I could look and say, well, let's look at the flow of money. So I could go for the financial and say, okay, so, they're paying for goods. We're doing a partner revenue model. And if I select any of these items on the right-hand side, you're able to, look at different types of financial models. You could expand that to say it's a revenue share model, and we'll be using percentages, right? So again, what you're trying to do here as part of the modeling is you're getting this implicit buy-in from people as well to understand the relationships, and doing it visually is something that really appeals to people because they can actually read it in a much simpler way than they would if it was, in the tabular view or anything else. So if I come back here and just do a reset all, you can see them all. Now, again, as I said before, if I wanted to add a particular stakeholder to this, I can just, drag in the hotel that we added and, create a link and the relationship there, and then decide what I want to do with that, right? So this is one view of an ecosystem, and it's, but what people really like in terms of being able to communicate is it actually is something that people can digest and understand. Now, to get the information in here, people manually put it in, and in many ways, the creation of the ecosystem map or model, like we've done here, the act of the creation is almost as important or even more important than the final product itself, because you're discussing, you're going through, you're understanding these different relationships at a high level. Now, you will want to be able to dig down and say, well, okay, if they're going to pay for goods and services, what's the process associated with that? How is that going to work? Or what's the technology? What's the APIs? But really the focus up front from an ecosystem modeling is, why are we doing this? Who's involved? And what do those connections look like? Now, if I just go back to the landing page on the project for a second, you'll see we've been just kind of going through these particular modules one by one. Now, one of the other elements that they've done within here is they've actually started defining different use cases associated with the key interactions on the business model. Well, one of the other modules that we've added in subsequent to this project was the partner ecosystem maturity model. So if I click on that, it'll open it up. And the partner ecosystem maturity model is basically a framework where across a number of dimensions, from strategy, culture, process, enablement, control, and services, it's categorized, key elements or key capabilities that an organization should consider. So, when we select a particular item, you'll get a description for it over here. I could also, if I wanted to, start assigning stakeholders to that. I could also, say I want to color tag that to say, this is, green, or could represent as
Yeah, I'm listening to the webinar on partner.
Sorry.
Yeah, on this.
If you're
I
not
can work
speaking,
at the
could you
same
put
time.
yourself on mute, please? If you're not Kevin, could you put yourself on mute at this time, please, until the questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So the idea on the, and Mike can go into more detail on the partner ecosystem maturity model, but what we meant, there are many examples of maturity models out there about digital transformation maturity, customer experience, cybersecurity, but quite often they're stuck in Excel spreadsheets. So what we wanted to do was, with Mike's cooperation and guidance, we pull this information into Transformation Accelerator, so it can be used for potentially an engagement with an organization to assess their as is or to be type level of maturity within there. And there's a range of different elements in here, so you can filter and say, well, I want to show the green, which could be your 2B, and you can rename all of these types of things as well. So you're able to quickly filter and look at particular items in here. Now, associated with each of those criteria are capabilities is, oh, sorry, I'll just reset the filter here, is if I go down to look at the child items below that, is also, well, what level are you? Are you at an initiating feed, a level? Are you performing? Are you leading? And again, you can use those. So in Transformation Accelerator, we have it available as a kind of a heat map. But one of the other things we have with Mike, and we're working with several partners, including the guys in Funnel, on using this, is also available as an assessment where you can actually provide a questionnaire to people in a more of a kind of structured way for them to answer. Now, so each of these little cards are what we refer to as a module. Now, those modules are fit for purpose, and you see they have stakeholders assigned and that. But at any stage, you may want to decide you wanted to add another module. And that other module could be something related to project activities and risks, something related to strategic planning, all sorts of different elements there. And these are all available, for you to use at any stage. So if I come back to my landing page here, and what I want to do is I want to kind of go back and talk a little bit about the stakeholders, because those are the kind of the glue that hold this all together, and those are the dependencies and the relationships that you've set across many of these particular modules. So if I go back to the stakeholders here, you'll see the hotel is now there, but on the little menu bar or toolbar up here, you've got an option called an assignment matrix. And what that does is it actually says, well, for each of the stakeholders, what have they been assigned to? So if I go to the enterprise, I can see, they've been associated with these drivers. So it's very much a tabular view, which is useful, and you may want to export that. But actually what's a lot more interesting is looking at this through a dynamic stakeholder map. So this stakeholder map is built dynamically by the tool to allow you to actually look at things from a specific perspective. So I look at the hotel, or if I go to for example, the business model, I can expand the business model, go into the value proposition, and select a particular value proposition and say, okay, for us to deliver that, who are the stakeholders that are going to be impacted or assigned? But equally important, it's telling you which of the stakeholders that have not been associated with it. And this view here, is dynamically built as you go through as you build the project out, and is a really useful way of being able to look at the project in its entirety, but also being able to understand, what are the key elements from a specific perspective. So, by clicking on the enterprise, I can expand and see, what are the items that, are the city charger that they're associated with. So really, there's two key things from an ecosystem modeling point of view. One is there's a range of inputs that you're going to have, and many of those inputs you're going to have in Word and PowerPoint and Excel, and you can import those into the tool. And possibly when you're gathering that information, you'll still possibly gather them in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and then pull them in. But what becomes really important then is going back to the ecosystem view, is then being able to visualize those relationships between the key stakeholders so that you can actually explain this in simple terms to different people. And then finally, going and looking at the actual what those individual stakeholders have been assigned across the project. Now, as I said, this is one example project that we have in the product. There's a range of other ones from design thinking to a whole range, 50, 60 plus different types of examples. And those are all, readily available for people to use and to take copies of and use locally. So I'm just going to pause there because I'm kind of up to about 20 minutes, and I'm conscious there's a lot more obviously we can show, but I'm just going to pause there and just kind of see if there's any further comments from Mike or Pia or Mika to see if there was anything else they thought specifically we should look at.
So a couple of quick comments from me first then, Kevin. You mentioned when you showed the section of the platform that you're in, you mentioned that we were in the Alliance Best Practice part of the platform. I just wanted to make all the other attendees on the call realize that that is available to you if you wish. You can go into the Alliance Best Practice part and you can collaborate with other consultants like Funnel and like others that I'm hoping to recruit. But you can just as easily approach Kevin directly and have your own area in the platform. We're not saying you have to run this as an Alliance Best Practice initiative at all. You can use this for yourself. That would be the first thing that I would say. Second thing I would say is that it's incredibly important what Kevin's saying about stakeholders, because if you think about an ecosystem and what you're trying to achieve, one of your fundamental requirements for an effective ecosystem is to ensure that all the stakeholders are happy. They're getting what they want. Now, those stakeholders could be your own organization, it could be your partners' organizations, it could be the customers, it could be a whole range. And those stakeholders could devolve down. So within your own organization, you could be thinking about your marketing key stakeholders, your sales key stakeholders, your product development key stakeholders, your technology key stakeholders. So this is an incredibly flexible and powerful tool that can help with that. The other thing that Kevin showed while he was doing it, he simply typed in, if you remember, @Kevin, and up popped the fact that it was Kevin McCaffrey. That's a great example of how you would have a number of people allocated to work on a specific ecosystem. Now, those people could be from the same company, or they could be from different companies. And that's the point. Sometimes when you're working on a complex alliance, you don't have the luxury of calling a snap meeting and having 6 different company representatives turn up at the same time, because diaries clash. And so what you want to do is leave a note when you're working on the ecosystem to somebody who's a key stakeholder in a different company to alert them to the fact that you're expecting input from them. That's incredibly useful because it means that people can work in different time zones. And just finally, on the partner ecosystem maturity model. Yes, one of the reasons that we developed the partner ecosystem maturity model was to help organizations to understand, where am I going with this? One of the things that has been produced recently is a report from Ernst & Young, AEY, which says that there is a direct relationship between an organization's ecosystem maturity and the money that that organization earns. If anybody hasn't had that report, please let me know. Please contact me, I'll send it to you. It's a very, very powerful report. Unfortunately, Greg Sarafin, who was due to be on this call, is on holiday this week. But I can put you in touch with Greg, and he'll re-emphasize that if you can increase the maturity of your ecosystem, you will increase the value that the ecosystem provides. So anything from Mika and Pia before we open it up for general questions? Pia, Mika?
Yeah.
No?
No, not in at this point.
Okay. Mika?
Maybe the biggest thing about when it comes to the designing the ecosystem and of course running the ecosystem it all comes back to the collaboration part. And in that sense, I see this platform really useful, as Mike just described. The collaboration part between different stakeholders and between different companies or ecosystem partners, that is really powerful in our point of view.
That's great. Okay, guys, we've got 36 people on the call. So if you all start asking a question at once, it's going to be complete bedlam. So can I ask, if you have a question or if you'd like to ask a question, could you just post something in the chat that says, I have a question, and then I can, the chair can recognize the senator from wherever, but at least I can try and keep some degree of order in all this. And particularly, I'd like to hear from at least two of those individuals represented on the call, the consultants and the practitioners. How do you feel you might use this? What value would you find from using this? So guys, questions? So this is the difficult part of the, okay. Ivoiko, would you like to ask your question? Ivoiko? No?
She's writing on the chat. So
Yeah.
what do you need to start with this tool?
So that's from Janine. Kevin, do you want to answer
Yeah, sorry.
Janine's question?
Yeah, sure. So to start using it, basically, if you wanted to use it for your own organization, Janine, one of the things you wanted to collaborate in terms of the partner ecosystem, you would just the Alliance Best Practices, area. We just need an email address and the name of the organization, and we can register you for the partner or for the Alliance Best Practice space if that's where you were. But if it's something you want to try for yourself, then Michael sent through my details. I'll put them in the chat, and you can just reach out to me, and we can arrange to have a private workspace created for you, and you're up and running. And we typically, what we would do is we'd have a follow-up with kind of a quick onboarding, have a chat, see how you're planning to use it, and then that's a private workspace for you. No one else has access to it. It's the product, I should also add, is ISO 27001 certified. So cybersecurity and data security is a really important aspect that we principle that we follow. So really, that's all that's required. And what we would want to do then is kind of work with you and get an understanding and feedback from you as you use the product.
I'm taking the.
Can I add a question?
Of course you can, Janine. Yeah.
What's the difference between the Alliance Best Practice environment and the environment? I know if I have my own environment, but if I use the the Alliance Best Practice environment, can everybody see what I do, or what?
Well, only the administrators within that area, Janine, would be able to see what you do. So that would be Mike or myself or somebody like that. If you're working on your own, let's say it's secret sauce, you'd probably want your own workspace, which is completely private, but it would include all of the examples that we've looked at that I showed you. And it would also include the partner ecosystem maturity model as well. So there's actually no difference in terms of the content. It's just more a case of who would have access. So you can control, you would be the controller of that workspace rather than Mike. And that would enable you to add more people, invite different types of collaborators, the whole range of stuff we can get into in terms of different roles and stuff like that. But in simple terms, it's a private workspace that you use, and you determine who has access to what.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question for you, Kevin, from Christine Stewart, bless her, who asked the blindingly obvious, which I was hoping somebody would ask, which is, how do we understand how pricing works? What are you going to charge for this platform, Kevin?
So yeah, the pricing is we use a SaaS pricing model. So it's basically an annual subscription model. But you know, what we're working with as part of this is to get people up and running and using the product. It would be there's you know, there's no charge or no cost or no credit card, none of that stuff required up front. You have full access to the product, and then we will work on you with you to ensure to evaluate your as you evaluate the product, and then determine the how you want to use it and the type of engagement. Because in actual fact, quite often many of our clients are also partners of ours who are using it for engaging with their clients. So quite often we end up with in it, you know, kind of, as we'd say here, kind of eating our own dog food and creating our own ecosystem as part of the product, where we've got a range. And this, I know, is something that's dear to people like Mika and Pia's heart, in terms of, you know, building a network of practitioners in this area that are using the platform. And we are constantly actually, you know, introducing different people to each other, because they have different synergies and different skills that can help out as well. Great. So I hope that answered. There was another question earlier from Alan. Earlier, behind the scenes, are you using ontology or semantic tools? Not really, no. There's a bit of stuff we do in there with regards to the chatbot and stuff like that. But we have an upcoming release where we are doing, kind of adding a recommendation type engine within there, that as people are creating more in terms of, like, let's say, swim lane diagrams or customer journey maps, where it'll allow you to, it would suggest capabilities and best practices from that you may want to consider using.
So just to pick up on something that Christine asked about the pricing, but not talking specifically about the pricing, but talking about how would we, that is you and I, Kevin, get people to be effective with the tool as quickly as possible? Because I'm conscious that even though you gave, and I know you gave a very high level view, but there's a very, very rich set of tools and capabilities in there. And I fear or wonder whether people will be somewhat overwhelmed by how many are actually available to them. My vision would be that for all those early adopter volunteers, be they consultants or be they practitioners, I would hope we could kind of gather them together under a kind of collaborative consortia, and then get Kevin to give us some common training, but focused around certain very, very specific ways of using the platform. So for example, how do you design an ecosystem? What would you say to your clients, or what would you say to your internal departments if you were trying to design an ecosystem as a practitioner? What are the steps that you would go through? Would you place stakeholders on the map first? Would you place entities? Would you place products? Which order would you do it in? Because he's coaching and teaching a group of us, we can all follow a common approach. And then the value of that is that as we start to work with our clients, or as we start to work as practitioners, we can hopefully speak to each other. We can share information with each other. We can say, well, I have a problem with this. How are you doing that? Or I have a problem with that. How are you doing this? So the key ask is for volunteers who would like to be part of such an approach. Yeah, okay. So Christine says she's up for it. Jonathan says he's up for it. I hope you appreciate that when you say you're up for it in this chat box, it means you're going to get an email from me. I'm going to be on you, you know, like a rash after this. Janine's in as well, which is excellent. Fantastic. Any other questions from any?
There were a couple of other ones. Can we import? Yeah, you can import different types of data. There's you know, whether that's kind of a larger amounts of hierarchical data, if you want to import information, whether it's from, you know, Excel type stuff, or even images or videos. You can also, one of the important things as well is quite often, you know, there will be additional documentation and information in other applications that people will want to continue using. We're not trying to replace Excel and PowerPoint, but you're going to have documents in Word that could be sitting in SharePoint or Confluence or wherever. So you can create those links directly within the tool so that you're able to quickly get to those reference points as well. The question about from your experience, what is the time frame to adopt the model? Generally speaking, the people quickly get to use the tool, and the tool has been designed specifically more, I want to say, for business users. It's important to say we're not trying to be an enterprise architecture tool. We're not trying to be Microsoft Project or Jira for that matter, but where quite often the discussion is around is adapting maybe your current methodology and how to use that. But one of the things within the product we didn't go into was the fact that there are a wide range of templates in there around strategic planning, ecosystem modeling, other elements within there that actually provide you with a kind of the blueprint. We're doing work at the moment from, literally organizations who are using it for modeling ecosystems related to home appliances, to cities looking at developing innovation districts, to 5G use cases. So, but the principles quite often all kind of come into that ecosystem view of things. So, absolutely. So as most of you guys are, probably all of you guys are very much ecosystem centric type people. To adapt it is very, is very short amount of time.
Kevin, do you want to pick up on Rob's question? Because that's quite detailed, as I'd expect it would be from Rob. It's in the chat. It's the latest in the chat. Can you see it?
Yeah. So please confirm that the models be temp. Yes. Basically, it's got the same kind of principle, Rob, as Word. You create a project and you do a save as a template, and that template then can be reused. So the template can contain both structure and content. So it allows you to, and those templates you create are within your own private workspace. So those are yours to manage. So secondly, then on tasks, we do have what we refer to as a Kanban module within the product, where as you can associate different activities with different people, with different stakeholders, different users, that can be then integrated with things such as Jira, or it can be exported into spreadsheets, or you can link directly to other applications as well. I hope that answered Rob's question. And I think there's another one from Milan. And thinking about scope from a business unit driven ecosystem, a company driven ecosystem, to a partnership driven ecosystem.
Alan's got a particular focus here, Kevin, and I think we'd need a separate conversation with Alan to explore how that might work in his area. So if it's okay with Alan, I'll reach out to him, get some times, and maybe set up a call to explore this, because what Alan's talking about is he runs an incredibly powerful group. He's got a lot of industries within the group, and this tool, I think, could be a wonderful addition to that group in terms of encouraging members to join, but also driving interaction and value within that group. So I think we'll take that one offline slightly and deal with it one-to-one.
Mike, can I ask you quickly?
Yep.
Great. So guys, looks great. Very interesting solution. We're currently building, as Mike knows, an ecosystem of partners, something the company's never done before. We're members of ABL as well, so the framework has been excellent for us. But what for us, we're finding integration is the key, right? And as an ecosystem player ourselves, the way we integrate into other solutions as an organization is key. But the tools we use are as well. So you mentioned Jira and stuff. What about Salesforce? Because we're finding that Salesforce is probably the core of what we do now, and is soon to be the single source of truth in the organization. So, we're trying to integrate into Jira, into Trello, and other solutions, including Teams and stuff like that. Do you have any integration capability natively, or would we need to get some middleware and tools for that?
Well, yeah, a couple of points on that, Alan, or Andy, sorry. We do have the integration capabilities. Basically, we do integrate with other applications on an as-needed basis, not necessarily, depending on the particular client. Actually, probably one of our largest clients at the moment is Salesforce.
Right. Okay.
And interestingly, what they're using it for is kind of twofold. One is from the product management team, understanding, to create a capabilities map for Salesforce for engaging with their customers. So being able to say, okay, Mr. Customer, what are the key capabilities you're looking for? And then those are then mapped to the Salesforce component architecture, the elements within there. So there's traceability throughout that. And their teams are actually using it for engaging with their customers.
Right, yeah.
So, but one of the things that they're really pushing us hard on and saying, well, we want you really tightly integrated with Salesforce so that you're able to, pull the data directly from Salesforce rather than it having to be pulled in. But happy to kind of go through that, Andy, on a chat with you, and actually even, chat
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
chat to some of the Salesforce guys that are using it as well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, and the kind of things that we're attempting to do is when we run through a series of tasks in Jira, those are directly mapped to fields within Salesforce, so that you've got this sort of tight integration. It allows the rest of the organization, particularly the sales organization, know the stage we're at with onboarding new alliances and all that. So yeah, that sounds interesting. We can probably have an offline chat about that. So
okay, sounds good.
Let me just make the distinction from what Andy's just said. Let me just make the distinction between a design and modeling tool and an execution tool. If you have a partner program up and running and that partner program is generating revenue, then obviously you will need a tool to capture the fact that you are generating revenue. That typically will be a CRM tool or a PRM tool. This won't replace that. This won't be a replicant for that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's incredibly important, I think, because I'm starting to get questions now from people saying, well, can you tell me how efficient my partner program is? Can you tell me how well it's working as compared to other partner programs? Now, so far in offering a service there, I've been able to say, well, I can spot various things which are important in partner programs. And I can then compare and contrast your partner program with somebody else's partner program. But that's not really getting to the heart of the value that flows around the program. If you use this tool, you can use it on your own partner program at whatever level of, whatever stage of development you're at, to say, are all the stakeholders fully satisfied? Are our partners satisfied? Are our internal departments satisfied? Are they getting what they expected from it? Are our customers getting what they expected from it? And then it's a next level of detail, not just our partners, but the different types of partners that we have. We have some partners who simply want to resell our products and services. We have other partners who are distribution partners, but we have other partners that are very important to us. They're called strategic, and we're very intimate with them. There are different types of stakeholder partners, and each different type can be a different entity in your map, and each different type gets a different business case applied to it. So you pay less or more money for the type of partner that you're dealing with. I can see that Janine's come in with a question. Can one environment of the Transformation Accelerator tool contain several ecosystems or just one? So as consultant, can I use one license to support several customers? Kevin, I think that's one for you.
Multi-tenancy.
What?
Multi-tenancy, I think that sounds like.
Yeah, well, actually, what we enable within the product is the short answer to your question. Yes, it does support that. So you can have multiple projects that can contain multiple ecosystems within each project. You can invite, and each of those projects could be different clients can be provided with different access to those. You've got concept of teams as well within there. One of the other things is as a consulting organization, when you're engaging with your clients, there's no additional charge for you to add additional users that are from your clients when you're engaging with them. So we want to encourage that collaboration. So and the information that Janine, that you would add on for one particular engagement, you have full control over who can see that and who can update it or edit it or just maybe add comments.
All right, guys. Well, I want to be respectful of the time that we booked with you. So we're getting very close to the end of our session. Thank you very much indeed for everybody who's attended. I'm delighted to say that the way that virtual event organizers measure these things is by how many people drop off when people start talking. And we've had very, very few people drop off. So clearly, despite himself, Kevin was incredibly interesting in his demonstration that he just gave. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Final comment to everybody on the call. From me anyway, I'll invite Kevin to say some final points, and then Pierre and Mika. Final comment from me is an ask. If you're interested in using this platform, what we're suggesting is that for a period of time, we'd like to get you up and running with it. We'd like to get some real practical evidence of the tool in action with a client or in an organization to see the kind of impact that it can make. Instinctively, I believe that it will be a much faster and much more efficient way of designing and modeling different types of ecosystem. But to prove that, I need some data. And that's why we're all on this call. So if you're at all interested, please get in touch, either with myself or with Kevin, and we'll coordinate a follow-up meeting where we talk about how we can make that happen. So that's the final comments from me. Kevin, do you have any final things to say to the group before we finish?
No, nothing. I think that's great. Thank you, Mike, for organizing this, and I really do appreciate any feedback and any participation people can have in the program. It'll be really beneficial for all of us, I think. Okay, Mika.
Yes, as Christine said on the chat, an ecosystem practitioners, that is one of the main thing and big idea behind this.
Yeah.
This event. So you are spot on, Christine.
Absolutely. And Pierre, finally, you have the honor of being the last speaker.
Yeah. I would have to say thanks from my side. I think it was interesting questions and hope everyone gets answers for their questions. And I really hope that we will have another session maybe in the future to share more like best practices to use this tool as well, and also we are here to like learn more ourselves to build up our services in ecosystems, and hope to see you again and hope to also network in LinkedIn with you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate all your time. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
Very interesting. Thanks, guys. Cheers now.
Cheers.